I'm Gary Venner, Managing Director of IFA Acquisitions, and I'm joined by Alex Cannon, Partner of Herrington Carmichael, where we continue our informative question and answer series under our YouTube channel to provide top tips when selling an IFA business and an insight into the legal processes when buying or selling an IFA business by two industry experts. The title of the next video is coming up on screen now.
And in terms of working with buyers who are looking to do multiple acquisitions, so the sort of consolidators, whether that's the established ones or sort of new entrants into the market, what sort of challenges, I suppose, are you seeing in terms of transactions with them, either due to the sheer volume of transactions they're looking to progress at once, or the sort of pressures that perhaps come from a slightly more robust approach where you've got people using sort of private equity money and those sort of influences?
Yeah, well, the challenges really depends, I think, on the consolidators' criteria. So, you know, it's music to our ears if somebody wants multiple acquisitions. But again, it does depend on that criteria. And as an example, if an acquirer is looking for an average client holding, say, of 250,000, then we wouldn't have much problem in delivering multiple vendors for them. However, if that suddenly is increased to 500,000 or above, then that does actually narrow the market as well. We would also look very much at the processes involved with that consolidator, and particularly the time frame in terms of alignment with their own model. So if there's going to be sudden changes, there's going to be less attraction by vendors to actually want to be purchased by someone like that. Yeah. So again, it really does depend on the criteria and the processes. Alex, you've been involved in multiple acquisitions, and I know you've mentioned before, they've ranged sort of from 500,000 purchase price all the way to sort of 25 million. You must have a number of top tips now, I would say. What would you say they were for acquirers?
For acquirers, I think the top tip has to be to look at the culture of the business you're acquiring. That's not a specifically legal tip, but I think it's so important, because when we look at the success rate of transactions, having buyers look at targets that are compatible with them, their ethos, that is something that you can't specifically value directly. Yeah. You can look at the funds under management, you can look at the recurring revenues, you can look at where the funds are invested and the centralised investment proposition and things like that, but actually having a culture in terms of staff, in terms of what type of client you look after, in terms of demographic and level of funds under management and charging structure, that is absolutely paramount. Where we see deals tend to fall over, it's actually because when they go through diligence, things are not aligned, they've got difference of opinion on how to grow the business and that side of things. So investing that time and looking at your targets at the beginning, doing that kind of high level sort of engagement and making sure that you're aligned, that has to be sort of front and centre of any acquisition strategy for a buyer. In terms of from a legal perspective, I think being clear with sellers what your expectations are around adjustments to the purchase price and in terms of control. That for me is something that we see probably the two more contentious points, because when people do sort of heads of terms, sometimes there's a kind of a keenness to move forwards and get through that stage very quickly, so they don't deal with the difficult issues, such as if you don't hit your numbers, what level of adjustment will the buyer make to your deferred purchase price? What level of control and integration do they want with your business? Will they keep the clients in the same company, they're doing a share acquisition, or will they expect to consolidate them into one of their other parts of their business to make efficiencies within the buyer's group? And if those questions are not sort of fleshed out at an early stage, we see when you get into the purchase agreement and start having these conversations, sellers then say, oh, that's not what I thought. So if you can document that, even just high level, just set that spirit out in the head, I think actually there's some value to it.
And that would be my experience as well. It's about being upfront, right from the beginning, so everybody, no surprise culture is really what makes a deal go through well.
And I think for serial acquirers such as the consolidators, where they are wanting to effectively try and replicate a standardised model of acquisition, being upfront about that early is even more important, because not everybody's, that model will not be for everybody. But for them, making really broad concessions on one deal and not on the next impacts them for value down the track. So I think if you're looking at that sort of type of buyer as a seller, asking them for what their positions are on those things, because they may be less flexible because of the wider business model they've got than another acquirer who can make decisions more freely and flexibly.
I do think sometimes that the larger consolidators get some bad press sometimes. However, one of the good things is they do have a tried and tested model.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that offers a lot of testimonials from previous vendors as well. And again, it's an importance, I think, if an acquirer wants to be in this market and to continue acquiring businesses, do what they say they'll do all the way through the process.
Yeah.
And it's certainly helpful for us in knowing what's happened before, and
Yeah.
of course we've been involved with many for many years, so we've seen it all the way through the process. And again, it's just do what you say you were going to do right from the very beginning, that there was no surprises throughout the entire process.
I think that's right as well with the sort of consolidators who have that established model. It has efficiencies in the process as well.
Yes.
And working with people who have worked with them before as well breeds sort of great efficiencies, because you can understand at an early stage, well, they will not accept this or they will require that.
Yes.
And from a seller's side of things as well, you can sort of get ahead of that by anticipating what they're going to want and providing that. So I think it works both ways.
My last question really to you, Alex, is how important do you see a broker involvement for a smooth transaction? I mean, we know that there's a real importance here of having a good lawyer, a good accountant to advise on the tax side. So just how important is a broker involvement, would you say?
Very important. The other professionals, everybody has their role to play in a transaction process, and the beauty of the sort of broker role is that you can talk to both sides.
Yeah.
We can only talk to the other party's solicitor, as a general rule. So being able to talk directly to the buyer and the seller and communicate those sort of commercial points, the sensitivities around some of the more political issues that might come up in a transaction process, and being able to sort of just have that free conversation that unfortunately sort of the professional side of things in terms of the lawyers and the accountants can't have. So I think if you're able to sit in that role and you've got somebody who's proactive in that, then it's invaluable. Because when you do get issues that crop up, whether it is a sticky legal point, an issue that arises in due diligence, or simply a commercial issue around valuation, or something that's changed in the business, having somebody who can pick up the phone directly to the buyer and communicate that and try and broker a commercial solution is invaluable.
I think that's exactly the right words, isn't it? It's about brokering a decision at the end of the day, and I always feel that looking at it from both sides, trying to make sure that the deal is fair and equitable, because I know that those are the deals that will work the very best.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Alex, I'd just like to thank you for all your involvement with our Q&A session here, and I just hope that we've been able to help any vendor or acquirer. Feel free to be able to talk to us and get in contact if they would like some more support and help.
Absolutely. No, thank you very much for having me. It's been great to talk through and share a few tips.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching our series over the past few weeks. We hope you gained value from what was discussed. We do have another series on the way. Have a look at this. In this series, I'm joined by Matt Murray, Director of Vertis Capital, and we will be providing an insight into the funding processes when buying an IFA business, and the benefits of using a broker when buying or selling IFA firms or client banks. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel so that you can be kept up to date over the coming weeks for this next informative series.